They are the geniuses, the legends. They are the conquerors of our world, achieving feats larger than life, and leaving us motivating peers to excel in all our chosen paths like they did before us. People in History, your 1-hour detailed documentary on the life and times of great heroes and heroines.
The Bible says there's pleasure in sin for a season.
Abby and Jean, who later became the Peaches.
Dr. Alex Ekwueme is outstandingly brilliant. He's very patriotic and very loyal.
Comes your way every Mondays, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. You can listen to any past episode of People in History just by logging on to our website www.planet101fm.ng and click on our podcast to listen to the past episodes. People in History, exclusive to Planet 101.1 FM.
Dr. Carter Goodwin Woodson, the father of Black History Month.
On December 19, 1875, the world was treated to the birth of an African-American historian who first opened the long-neglected field of black studies to scholars and also popularized the field in the schools and colleges of black people. A man whom, to focus attention on black contributions to civilization, founded the Negro History Week. He was the second African-American to receive a doctorate from Harvard after W.E.B. Du Bois.
Let me show you the man who managed to get a Ph.D. from Harvard, only the second man after W.E.B. Du Bois, who was denied his own education and didn't get formal education until he was 20 years old. He was a remarkable human being, an extraordinary intellect.
Known as the father of black history, he dedicated his career to the field of African American history and lobbied extensively to establish Black History Month as a nationwide institution. His name, Carter G. Woodson.
He sought in every way possible to represent African Americans as people who had made enormous, significant contributions to the development of this country.
Born on December 19, 1875, he was an African-American writer and historian who penned the influential book, The Miseducation of the Negro. Carter G. Woodson was a scholar whose dedication to celebrating the historic contributions of black people led to the establishment of Black History Month, marked every February since 1976. Woodson fervently believed that black people should be proud of their heritage and all Americans should understand the largely overlooked achievements of black Americans.
Well, Dr. Woodson, in his book, The Miseducation of the Negro, that was written in 1933, he starts out his thesis in the book talking about how important it is for African Americans, or the Negro at that time, to understand that education has a purpose, and that unique purpose is not necessarily the overall American purpose. It can be focused on African Americans, focusing on education having a purpose to create economics in their community. So he talks about how it's important for African Americans today to use education as a tool to create economics within their community.
This edition of People in History takes a look at the life and times of an educator, historian, and publisher who founded the whole genre of African American history. A man who was the one and only black American of slave parentage to earn a Ph.D. in history. A man who not only wrote and published 19 books and numerous articles, but founded the first scholarly journal dedicated to African American history. His name, Carter G. Woodson.
Think of the worst things people can say about your culture, about your race, about your religion, about your people. Are they true? The more these stereotypes are hoisted upon the cultural landscape, the more people look at blacks and Jews, Muslims, Catholics, Native Americans, Asians, and Hispanics with wary eyes, wondering if the demonizing insults are true. How in the world can you believe in yourself if those around you believe you're a lesser life form.
Carter G. Woodson was born in New Canton, the son of former slaves Anne Eliza and James Henry Woodson. His parents were both illiterate, and his father, who had helped the Union soldiers during the Civil War, supported the family as a carpenter and farmer.
Well, Dr. Woodson, he was born in West Virginia in 1875. His birthday, we just celebrated his birthday on December 19th. And so he was born in New Canton, Virginia in 1875. And when he was the first of 9 children, one of 9 children, and his parents were recently, remember, to put it in historical context, during the 1870s, the United States had just gotten through with the Civil War, and then we had the ushering in of the Reconstruction. So you had a lot of manumitted, freed slaves. So Woodson was the first child, was one of 9 children that was born not as a slave.
The Woodson family was extremely poor, but proud, as both his parents told him that it was the happiest day of their lives when they became free. His sister was the poet, teacher, and activist Bessie Woodson Yancey. Woodson was often unable to attend primary school regularly so as to help out on the farm. Nonetheless, through self-instruction, he was able to master most school subjects.
His father was one of several former slaves who came to this area with Collis P. Huntington to complete the railroad. He stayed 2 or 3 years and moved back to New Canton, Virginia. And Carter G. Woodson was born in New Canton, Virginia in 1875. He relied on his father, who was a great example to him. And he taught himself the classics. He was a well-educated man, basically because of his own teachings before he had the formal education. He only spent 1 year in high school.
At the age of 17, Woodson followed his older brother Robert Henry to Huntington, West Virginia, where he hoped to attend Douglas High School, a secondary school for African Americans founded there. Woodson was forced to work in the coal mines at Huntington, which left little time for pursuing an education. At the age of 20, in 1895, Woodson was finally able to enter Douglas High School full-time and received his diploma in 1897.
So he was very much inspired that his parents, they were sharecroppers, and in West Virginia they had a mining industry there in the 1870s. So when he grew up not wanting to appreciate education and learning. So what he did was he went to high school when he was in his early 20s. And so he was able to get his education in his early 20s. And then he went to a school in Kentucky, Berea College. A lot of people don't know this, but he graduated from Berea College in 1903. Okay, and then later after that, he went on to one of the most prestigious universities here in our country, in the United States, University of Chicago, where he got the BA in history in 1907.
From his graduation in 1897 until 1900, Woodson was employed as a teacher at a school in Winona, West Virginia. His career advanced further in 1900 when he was selected to become the principal of Douglas High School, the place where he had started his academic career. Between 1901 and 1903, Woodson took classes at Berea College in Kentucky, eventually earning his bachelor degree in literature in 1903. From 1903 to 1907, Woodson served as a school supervisor in the Philippines, which had recently become an American territory. Woodson later attended the University of Chicago, where he was awarded an AB and AM in 1908. He was a member of the first black professional fraternity, Sigma Pi Phi, and a member of Omega Psi Phi. He completed his Ph.D. in history at Harvard University in 1912, where he was the second African American after W.E.B. Du Bois to earn a doctorate.
And so from University of Chicago, after he got his degree, he also worked for the United States government. He went on to the Philippines. And his area of interest was education administration and teaching. So you can see he had a sort of that experience as a teacher, right? When he came back, he went to Harvard University. And he went and pursued the Ph.D. in history at Harvard University. And he was the second African American to actually get the Ph.D. from Harvard University. The first was W.E.B. Du Bois, that a lot of people know about in African American history. And he achieved that in 1912. I think, so he had the education.
After earning the doctoral degree, he continued teaching in public schools, as no university was willing to hire him, ultimately becoming the principal of the all-black Armstrong Manual Training School in Washington, D.C. He later joined the faculty at Howard University as a professor and served there as Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences. His dissertation advisor was Albert Bushnell Hart, who had also been the advisor for Du Bois, with Edward Channing and Charles Haskins also on the committee. Woodson felt that the American Historical Association, AHA, had no interest in black history, noting that although he was a dues-paying member of the AHA, he was not allowed to attend AHA conferences. Woodson became convinced he had no future in the white-dominated historical profession, and to work as a black historian would require creating an institutional structure that would make it possible for black scholars to study history.
His name is not as well known as some other African American achievers in the 20th century because he was not trying to push his own name. He wanted the world to know about these other people, their achievements, which had been ignored. And as a result, we know less about Woodson because he wanted us to know about these people who had come before him. From his early beginnings, working in the coal mines in West Virginia and teaching in West Virginia, his West Virginia experience in those early years were the turning point for his life. And he became the father of black history from those beginnings.
As Woodson lacked the funds to finance such a new institutional structure himself, he turned to philanthropist institutions such as the Carnegie Foundation, the Julius Rosenwald Foundation, and the Rockefeller Foundation, convinced that the role of his own people in American history and in the history of other cultures was being ignored or misrepresented among scholars. Woodson realized the need for research into the neglected past of African Americans. Along with William D. Hartgrove, George Cleveland Hall, Alexander L. Jackson, and James E. Stamps, he founded the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History on September 9, 1915, in Chicago. Woodson's purpose, as he put it, was to treat the records scientifically and to publish the findings of the world in order to avoid the awful fate of becoming a negligible factor in the thought of the world.
Dr. Woodson started the association in 1915 at the height of the ascendancy of the Ku Klux Klan, when lynchings were rampant in the United States of America, when racism was part and parcel of American ideology.
Well, of course, there were the obstacles of bigotry and of racism and of denial. Large numbers of white Americans simply could not believe that African Americans had made anything like contributions.
That was the year Woodson published The Education of the Negro prior to 1861. His other books followed: A Century of Negro Migration, 1918, and The History of the Negro Church, 1927. In January 1916, Woodson began publication of the scholarly Journal of Negro History. It has never missed an issue, despite the Great Depression, loss of support from foundations, and 2 world wars. In 2002, it was renamed the Journal of African American History and has continued to be published by the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, ASALH. Woodson stayed at the Wabash Avenue YMCA during visits to Chicago. His experiences at the Y and in the surrounding Burnsville neighborhood inspired him to create the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History in 1915.
You really have to understand what an amazing personality Dr. Carter G. Woodson was. Dr. Woodson was born of enslaved parents. His father was actually one of the U.S. colored troops who was responsible for the freedom that this country has today and African Americans have. And at a very late stage in his life, at 19 years old, Dr. Woodson started his formal education. And from there, Dr. Woodson went on to be the second African American to receive his Ph.D. from Harvard University. He started this organization in 1915 after attending the 50th anniversary of the emancipation of African Americans and found that there were so many people who were talking about Black people, and Negroes are colored at the time, but didn't really know what they were talking about. And so Dr. Woodson really set out to make sure that the truth about our contribution was told by African Americans and others. So he started this association with 4 of his friends. And from that point on September 9th, 1915 to today, our mission is still to research, publish, and disseminate the truth of the contributions of African Americans. And I'm just delighted to say that we're still doing that because it is still needed today. African Americans are still making history today. We are still making fantastic contributions that the world needs to know today. And American history is very important, but it must be grounded in the truth and capture the contributions of all. And African Americans have made a tremendous impact on what this country is today and what she needs to be.
The Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, now the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, ran conferences, published the Journal of Negro History, and particularly targeted those responsible for the education of Black children. Another inspiration was John Wesley Cromwell's 1914 book, The Negro in American History, Men and Women Eminent in the Evolution of the American of African Descent. Woodson believed that education and increasing social and professional contacts among Black and white people could reduce racism, and he promoted the organized study of African American history partly for that purpose. He later promoted the first Negro History Week in Washington, D.C. in 1926, forerunner of Black History Month. The Burnsville neighborhood declined during the late 1960s and 1970s, like many other inner-city neighborhoods across the nation, and the Wabash Avenue YMCA was forced to close during the 1970s until being restored in 1992 by the Renaissance Collaborative.
Dr. Woodson, he is the founder of Black History Month. He founded Black History Month in 1926. Okay, it started out as Negro History Week. And the reason why Dr. Woodson founded it was because of the birthdays of Frederick Douglass, right, and Abraham Lincoln. And he thought that in 1926, we needed to celebrate the Negro and their accomplishments to American history. And so when he started that, he didn't start it in a vacuum. He had done a lot of research. He was the second person to receive the Ph.D. in history from Harvard University. He was the second African American after W.E.B. Du Bois, who was the first. And he got his Ph.D. from Harvard in the 1915. So around that time, you know, the turn of the 20th century, Woodson founded Negro History Week, but also he was doing a lot of research in Negro history and African American history. And in 1916, he primarily started the Journal of Negro History. So that has sort of been the journal in the academy, in the American Academy, that focuses on African American history.
He served as academic dean of the West Virginia Collegiate Institute, now West Virginia State University, from 1920 to 1922. By 1922, Woodson's experience of academic politics and intrigue had left him so disenchanted with university life that he vowed never to work in academia again. He studied many aspects of African American history. For instance, in 1924 he published the first survey of free black slave owners in the United States in 1830. Woodson became affiliated with the Washington, D.C. branch of the NAACP and its chairman, Archibald Grimke. On January 28, 1915, Woodson wrote a letter to Grimke expressing his dissatisfaction with activities and making two proposals: that the branch secure an office for a center to which persons may report whatever concerns the black race may have, and from which the association may extend its operations into every part of the city, and that a canvasser be appointed to enlist members and obtain subscriptions for the Crisis, the NAACP magazine, edited by W.E.B. Du Bois.
What Woodson did was he was very careful about writing everything that related to our culture and history during that time. And so he was, not only was he just a historian, but he was almost like a sociologist to a certain extent. And so the contemporaries like W.E.B. Du Bois, Booker T. Washington, Marcus Garvey, Zora Neale Hurston, Langston Hughes, they were all part of what I call the African American pantheon of literary people who wrote and who were particular about categorizing the experiences of the African American or the Negro during that time.
Woodson devoted the rest of his life to historical research. He worked to preserve the history of African Americans and accumulated a collection of thousands of artifacts and publications. He noted that African American contributions were overlooked, ignored, and even suppressed by the writers of history textbooks and the teachers who used them. Race prejudice, he concluded, is merely the logical result of tradition, the inevitable outcome of thorough instruction to the effect that the Negro has never contributed anything to the progress of mankind. The summer of 1919 was the Red Summer, a time of intense racial violence that saw about 1,000 people, most of whom were black, killed between May and September 1919.
When you think of black people as inferior, it would only make sense, this argument that they had done nothing to contribute to the world. So he's going to point out all of those fallacies and really try to give the black community a rallying point around which to push their efforts, that we really needed to do something to make people aware, not just black people, but white people, about all of the contributions that people of African descent, both on the continent of Africa and also in this country, have made to the world and to the United States of America.
He believed that hard facts, through research and fair-mindedness, would bring balance to history, and that his thesis was that all peoples in the world had made a contribution to civilization. And once that people on a mass scale understood this, there would be greater respect for all races, all ethnic groups, all religions.
In the face of widespread disillusionment felt in Black America caused by the Red Summer, Carter worked hard to improve the understanding of Black history, later writing, open quote, I have made every sacrifice for this movement. I have spent all my time doing this one thing and trying to do it efficiently." Close quote. The 1920s were a time of rising black self-consciousness expressed variously in movements such as the Harlem Renaissance and the Universal Negro Improvement Association, led by an extremely charismatic Jamaican immigrant, Marcus Garvey. In the atmosphere, Woodson was considered by other black Americans to be one of their most important community leaders who discovered their lost history. Woodson's project for the new Negro history had a dual purpose of giving black Americans a history to be proud of and to ensure that the overlooked role of black people in American history was acknowledged by white historians.
It was widely believed that African Americans had no history to be appreciated, and Woodson set about to debunk that kind of thinking. There are many people who believe that Woodson was an institution builder, and he was concerned about black institutions. And that's why you see him creating, he would find a need and fill that void. He knew that black scholars were not being published by white publishers. So he created the Journal of Negro History, which is now a Journal of African American History. He realized that black authors were rarely published by mainstream publishers. So he created his own book publishing company and published not only his books, but he published books by other authors. He believed that if we could show that African Americans had made contributions in history like other races had, he would erase some of the hatred, because through more education and understanding, a complete understanding of history, other people would appreciate the contributions of African Americans.
Woodson wrote, open quote, "While the association welcomes the cooperation of white scholars in certain projects, it proceeds also on the basis that its important objectives can be attained through Negro investigators who are in a position to develop certain aspects of life and history of the race which cannot otherwise be treated. In the final analysis, this work must be done by Negroes. The point here is rather that Negroes have the advantage of being able to think black." Close quote. Woodson's claim that only black historians could really understand black history anticipated the fierce debate that rocked the American historical profession in the 1960s to 1970s, when a younger generation of black historians asserted that only black people were qualified to write about black history. Despite the claim, the need for funding ensured that Woodson had several white philanthropists such as Julius Rosenwald, George Foster Peabody, and James H. Dillard elected to the board of the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History. Woodson preferred white patrons such as Rosenwald, who were willing to finance his association without being involved in its work. Some of the white board members that Woodson recruited, such as the historian Albert Bushnell Hart and the teacher Thomas Jesse Jones, were not content to play the passive role that Woodson wanted, leading to clashes as both Hart and Jones wanted to write about black history. In 1920, both Jones and Hart resigned from the board in protest against Woodson. In 1926, Woodson pioneered the celebration of Negro History Week, designated for the second week in February to coincide with marking the birthdays of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass.
Woodson chose the first week in February to cover the birthdays of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass, two people who made significant contributions in African American freedom. Without Woodson, you wouldn't have departments of African American history. There are African American history and Africana history in all the major universities, in some cases minor universities and colleges, because of Woodson. You didn't have such programs before him. You see his stamp on all of that. If you scratch the surface, his impact is everywhere.
Woodson wrote of the purpose of Negro History Week as, open quote, "It is not so much a Negro History Week as it is a History Week. We should emphasize not Negro history, but the Negro in history. What we need is not a history of selected races or nations, but the history of the world void of national bias, race hatred, and religious prejudice." Close quote. The idea of a Negro History Week was a popular one, and to honor Negro History Week, parades, breakfasts, speeches, lectures, poetry readings, banquets, and exhibits were held to honor it. The Black United Students and Black educators at Kent State University expanded the idea to include an entire month beginning on February 1st, 1970.
What if I told you that there is a person who was born in Virginia and both of his parents are illiterate and they are former slaves? He gets accepted to Harvard University, where he studies and earns a doctorate in history. That person is Dr. Carter G. Woodson. He went on to, in the future, found something in 1926 that he called Negro History Week. And he put it in February because it contained the birthdays of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. It became Black History Month. And so the wildly improbable, amazing, and inspiring stories of Black History Month are bound up in the story of how we even got to have Black History Month in the first place.
Since 1976, every U.S. president has designated February as Black History Month. Woodson believed in self-reliance and racial respect, values he shared with Marcus Garvey, a Jamaican activist who worked in New York. Woodson became a regular columnist for Garvey's weekly Negro World. Garvey believed Afro-Americans should embrace C-generation, as he contended that race relations were and always would be antagonistic, and his ultimate objective was a Back to Africa plan, as he believed all Afro-Americans should move to Africa. Woodson broke with Garvey when he learned that Garvey was meeting with the leaders of the Ku Klux Klan to discuss how the Universal Negro Improvement Association and the Klan could work together to achieve his Back to Africa plans. Woodson's political activism placed him at the center of a circle of many Black intellectuals and activists from the 1920s to the 1940s. He corresponded with W.E.B. Du Bois, John E. Bruce, Arturo Alphonsus Schomburg, Hubert H. Harrison, and T. Thomas Fortune, amongst others. Even with the extended duties of the association, Woodson was able to write academic works such as The History of the Negro Church, 1922, The Miseducation of the Negro, 1933, and others which continue to have wide readership.
And I think in his development, and he's written a lot of books in Negro history and African American history, he's written a lot of books on the education of African Americans. One of them is The Century of Negro Migration in 1918. He wrote a book. He wrote The History of the African American Church in 1921. He also wrote The Negro in Our History in 1922. And so he's written a lot. And so because he had that Ph.D., I think he was fueled to create a narrative, to create a voice for African Americans in American history. And so one of his key books that he wrote in 1933 is The Miseducation of the Negro. And I think he wrote this reflecting on all of the history that he had analyzed and examined.
Woodson did not shy away from controversial subjects and used the pages of Black World to contribute to debates. One issue related to West Indian and African American relations. He summarized that the West Indian Negro is free and observed that West Indian societies had been more successful at properly dedicating necessary amounts of time and resources needed to educate and emancipate people genuinely. Woodson approved of efforts by West Indians to include materials related to Black history and culture into their school curriculum. Woodson was ostracized by some of his contemporaries because of his insistence on defining a category of history related to ethnic culture and race. At the time, these educators felt that it was wrong to teach or understand African American history as separate from more general American history. According to these educators, Negroes were simply Americans, darker-skinned, but with no history apart from that of any other. Thus, Woodson's efforts to get Black culture and history into the curricula of institutions, even historically Black colleges, were often unsuccessful.
It was damaging African Americans because they too were being exposed to these ideas and accepted them as truth, and it had a damaging effect on their self-esteem and their belief in their themselves to be able to go on and educate and contribute to the world.
Woodson was an outspoken detractor of the Christian Church. In 1933, he wrote in The Miseducation of the Negro that the ritualistic churches into which these Negroes have gone do not touch the masses, and they show no promising future for racial development. Such institutions are controlled by those who offer the Negroes only limited opportunity, and then sometimes on the condition that they be segregated in the court of the Gentiles outside of the temple of Jehovah.
The first persons proselyted by the Spanish and French missionaries were Indians. There was not any particular thought of the Negro. It may seem a little strange just now to think of persons having to be converted to faith in a possibility of salvation of the Negro, but there were among the colonists thousands who had never considered the Negro as belonging to the pale of Christianity. Negroes had been generally designated as infidels, but in the estimation of their self-styled superiors, they were not considered the most desirable of this class, supposedly arrayed against Christianity. There were a few Christians who did not look forward to the ultimate conversion of those infidels approaching the Caucasian type, but hardly any desired to make an effort in the direction of proselyting Negro.
Woodson died suddenly from a heart attack in the office within his home in the Shore, Washington, D.C. neighborhood on April 3, 1950, at the age of 74. He was buried at Lincoln Memorial Cemetery in Suitland, Maryland. The time the schools have set aside each year to focus on African American history is Woodson's most visible legacy. Although Woodson was among the ranks of the educated few, he did not feel particularly sentimental about elite educational institutions. The association and journal that he started are still operating, and both have earned intellectual respect. Woodson's other far-reaching activities included the founding in 1920 of the Associated Publishers in Washington, D.C. This enabled the publication of books concerning Black people that might not have been supported in the rest of the market. He founded Negro History Week in 1926, now known as Black History Month. He created the Negro History Bulletin, developed for teachers in elementary and high school grades, and published continuously since 1937. Woodson also influenced the association's direction and subsidizing of research in African American history. He wrote numerous articles, monographs, and books on Black people. The Negro in Our History reached its 11th edition in 1966 when it had sold more than 90,000 copies. Dorothy Porter Wesley recalled, open quote, Woodson would wrap up his publications, take them to the post office and have dinner at the YMCA. He would teasingly decline her dinner invitation, saying, "No, you are trying to marry me off. I am married to my work." Close quote. Woodson's most cherished ambition, a 6-volume Encyclopedia Africana, was incomplete at the time of his death. In 1926, Woodson received the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People Spingarn Medal. The Carter G. Woodson Book Award was established in 1974 for the most distinguished social science books appropriate for young readers that depict ethnicity in the United States.
As the triumph of black people continue to seek platforms for its innate greatness, the African American Historical Association of Fairfield County, Connecticut stands at the vanguard of organizations recording the black experience in New England. Now, the AHA of Fairfield County continues to honor the spirit of accuracy in the recounting of the black experience with our upcoming 5th annual Carter G. Woodson Awards, named after Carter G. Woodson, the father of Black History Month. Our honorees for 2012 will include Walter Luckett, the genius of athletics, business, and education, the Reverend Dr. Anthony Bennett of the exciting Mount Airy Baptist Church in Bridgeport, Connecticut, as well as John and Cecilia DeRosa, the philanthropic founders of the Jackie Robinson Park of Fame in Stamford, Connecticut. We'll honor these and other legends of Connecticut's black legacy on. Until then, this is the African American Historical Association of Fairfield County, Connecticut, where black history never ends and the torch passed from one generation of great black people to the next will never be extinguished.
The U.S. Postal Service issued a 20-cent stamp honoring Woodson in 1984. In 1992, the Library of Congress held an exhibition entitled Moving Back Barriers, The Legacy of Carter G. Woodson. Woodson had donated his collection of 5,000 items from the 18th, 19th, and 20th centuries to the library. His Washington, D.C. home has been preserved and designated the Carter G. Woodson Home National Historic Site.
Woodson is from the early 1920s to the late 1940s. A lot of his home is in Washington, D.C. is a national monument. If you go to the United States National Park Service, you can see his home as a national monument. And most of his work was affiliated with Howard University because he lived in Washington, D.C. But a lot of his works that he wrote, whether it was the African American History Bulletin, or formerly called the Negro History Bulletin, the Journal of Negro History, now the Journal of African American History, and various works now are within the Library of Congress. So anyone could go to the Washington, D.C. and go to the Library of Congress and see his works. There is a conservatory for his works. And I mean, Dr. Woodson, he was the epitome of scholarship. And this is what I encourage all African young people and we as adults to foster an appreciation for knowledge and reading.
In 2002, scholar Molefi Keita Ashanti named Carter G. Woodson on his list of 100 greatest African Americans. On February 1st, 2018, it was honored with a Google Doodle. Several places were named in honor of Woodson. Carter Woodson Biographical Cartoon by Charles Alston, 1943. Carter G. Woodson Elementary School in Los Angeles. Carter G. Woodson Public Charter School in Fresno. Carter G. Woodson Park in Oakland Park. Carter G. Woodson Elementary School was located in Oakland Park. It was closed in 1965 when the Broward County Public School system was desegregated.
At Carter G. Woodson School, every child counts and every child achieves.
I know I can succeed.
I am excited about learning. I am what the world has been waiting for.
I'm the next generation of leaders.
At Carter G. Woodson School, our students graduate and are accepted into college.
I am Brandon Kelly, and I've been accepted to North Carolina A&T University.
I am Danny Gutierrez, and I'm going to Forsyth Technical Community College.
I am Duana Douthit, and I'm going to Ferrum College.
I'm Kira McNeil, and I'm going to Shaw University.
At Carter G. Woodson School, education is not an option, it is guaranteed.
We are graduates of the Carter G. Woodson School.
Dr. Carter G. Woodson African American Museum in St. Petersburg, Carter G. Woodson Elementary School in Jacksonville, Dr. Carter G. Woodson PK-8 Leadership Academy in Tampa, Florida, and Carter G. Woodson Elementary in Atlanta, among others.
Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
The museum in St. Petersburg is named after the father of Black History Month. The Dr. Carter G. Woodson Museum showcases art by African Americans.
We're the only museum that does not sit on the pristine waterfront, but that's nestled in a community where the rich history, in fact, was cultivated.
This year, Google kicked off Black History Month with a doodle of Woodson.
It wasn't until 1976 that we began celebrating Black History Month as a result of him introducing in 1926 the study of Negro History Week.
The Dr. Carter G. Woodson Museum is free to the public and is the only museum in St. Petersburg dedicated to preserving the rich African American history.
We have book clubs for youth. We've hosted piano lessons for children of the community. We in fact have adult book clubs as well. We're the home of the One City Chorus who practice here every week, and they sing songs of the Civil Rights Movement.
The museum even hosts the Florida Orchestra from January through April. You can also rent the gallery space and Legacy Garden for private events.
We're excited to be the hub and the sanctuary of conscious conversations as it relates to race.
This week's edition of People in History salutes a man whose determination to further the recognition of Black race in American and world history inspired countless other scholars. A man who remained focused on his work throughout his life. A man whom many saw as a man of vision and understanding. His name, Carter Woodson.
Woodson, unlike Du Bois, though, was descended from former slaves, and Woodson is believed to be the only offspring of former slaves to receive a Ph.D. in history from any institution, making his research and writings on slavery in America even more significant because he knew what his parents had experienced and other relatives and their friends. So anytime anyone does any research on American slavery and African Americans in general, if they don't begin with Carter G. Woodson, then you should be suspicious of the quality of their work.
This week's edition of People in History was voiced by Xavier Robert and Miracle Phillip, scripted and sourced by Jane Uwa, and produced by Joseph Manasseh. Among notable sources include Biography.com, History.com, among others.
No person can imagine where he's going unless he knows where he's been.
The more I learn as I've continued to educate myself and to study about people like James Lafayette, like Anthony Johnson, like Maggie Walker, it's an absolute inspiration to me because not only did they look like me, but because here you have an individual with enough character, enough strength, enough skill that living in some very difficult times, they were able to use what they had. No excuses, no pity parties, but use what they had to advance their cause and take not only themselves, but other people to another level.
Across our country today, African Americans have overcome terrible lies and stereotypes to achieve great success. Carter Woodson inspired each of these people to understand the success that has been achieved by pioneers of their culture and the contributions they have made and are now making to our nation.